Hey Bunnrings, I'm Cora Kira, your ever-curious and ever-loyal companion and your personal guide to the retro realm of bunnhop. How are you all doing? We were gone for more than a month, so I thought it'd be best to do a little compilation/listicle type video for those of you who prefer this type of lore presentation. In this video, as the title suggests, we'll feature 10 lore facts from Ragnarok Online that some of you may already know, but others may want to learn more about before we delve deeper into the lore of each quest in separate videos. These 10 lore points are not in order of significance, but I tried to organize them based on simplicity, chronicity, and what I personally think our budding RO lore enthusiasts should know first. I'd also like to thank Ruchi, who goes by Ruchi Punch on Reddit, one of the few Ragnarok lore masters whose theories and posts are treasure troves of information, the Ragnarok Online fandom wiki team for their bravery and fortitude in taking on the arduous task of compiling RO lore into an easily digestible wiki, and the team whose efforts to compile the different timelines of the entire Ragnarok IP in a Google document are unmatched. A link to the file can be found in the description box below. I highly recommend you all to check it out. A little disclaimer here, the entire Ragnarok Online IP in terms of lore is, honestly, a confusing mess. Between the manhwa and the Ragnarok Online PC game, there are already loads of inconsistencies, like how Pantera is the capital city of the Volsung Kingdom instead of Rune-Midgarts, just to name one. On top of that, each Ragnarok spin-off, be it a console game or a mobile game, also has their own unique take on the lore. The easiest way to think about it is in the sense of a multiverse, where there are many alternate timelines and realities, and all the events from different media, although some may be conflicting, are true in their own way. But for the sake of simplicity and my own personal preference, we are only going to focus on lore points presented in the online game, but with additional references to the manhwa, since it is its direct predecessor, inspiration, and the material with the most similarities lore-wise, with many of its characters being introduced in the game post-renewal. There are a few times when I'll be making short references to popular spin-offs such as Ragnarok Online Mobile, Eternal Love, and Ragnarok Origin, but I will make sure to concretely mention that they're mere references and not lore points taken from the PC game to avoid confusion. Now all that's out of the way, let's get started, shall we? Number 1. The events of the game are set in the early first millennium AW. In order to further explain what that means, we'll have to discuss the timeline of the world of Ragnarok Online, which is typically divided into 4 sections, or eras if you will. The first one is prehistory, which is before any recorded history and before any living Norman civilization. If you remember from our lore retrospective video, Norman is the term used to refer to humans in the world of RO. In the beginning, there was Ymir, the primordial being who is of Jotnar or giant race. Odin, the strongest Aesir god, slew him and used his body to create the mortal realm of Midgard and his heart to power it. In the manhwa, Midgard appears to be a planet, which could suggest that Asgard, the land of the gods, might be in outer space. The creation of Midgard is the starting point of the age known as Midgard Century. Norman civilization started to flourish, only for their survival to be threatened by a major event called the 1,000-Year War in 1204 MC between the gods led by Odin and the fire giants from Muspelheim led by Surt, aka Satan Morok, with Midgard as their battleground. This cataclysm is also considered the first Ragnarok, but ultimately failed thanks to the alliance between the Aesir and Normans. This pushed back Ragnarok 1,000 years, extending the Age of Gods. Keep this in mind as this will be relevant later. As we learned from the manhwa, some gods, including Baldur, beloved son of Odin, and Fenrir the Wolf, son of Loki, unfortunately perished during this war. Freya, a once benevolent Vanir goddess, formed a rebellion against Odin and the Aesirs and was ultimately banished from Asgard, turning her into a vengeful deity. When the war ended, another era dawned upon Midgard, dubbed as After-War or AW. Many significant historical events occurred during this time, including the subjugation of the world serpent Jormungandr by 7 noble warriors led by Tristan Gaibolg I, which resulted in the formation of the Rune-Midgarts kingdom, the founding of the Arunafelt states by Freya worshippers, the fall of an ancient yet advanced Norman civilization, Another invasion attempt by Satan Morok, which failed thanks to the efforts of a certain legendary knight called Thanatos. The establishment of the Schwarzwald Republic, quickly followed by the rise of the Rekenber Corporation. The birth of perhaps the greatest sage known to Normankind, Alfred Varmint. The mercenary rebellion against Rekenber and their guardians. The reign of terror of a certain king of Rune-Midgarts. And another attempt by Satan Morok thwarted by the Assassin's Guild. He doesn't know when to quit, does he? Just to name a few. The events of the manhwa begin in 997 AW, which, if you've been paying attention, means that we're getting close to the edge. Another Ragnarok event is bound to happen sometime soon, which is most likely why the franchise is called Ragnarok. The events of the Ragnarok online PC game begin in 1000 AW, and currently, post-renewal, we're sometime in 1003 AW. It's interesting to note that in the mobile spin-off Ragnarok Origin, the game starts with a massive fire in Pantera, and we can clearly see in the newspaper that the year is AW 1002. So when it comes to lore among the mobile games in the entire IP, I'd say Ragnarok Origin hits the closest mark in terms of similarities, and that its timeline is happening concurrently with that of the PC game. Finally, we have New Era, or NE, which is the beginning of the Age of Man after the second Ragnarok event aptly called the Day of Despair, when Freya's forces invaded Midgard only to be fended off by Chaos and the gang, who then sealed her in Vanaheim, her homeworld. This is the setting of the sequel Ragnarok Online 2, which occurs 300 years into NE. So that's it, we're at 1003 AW. Now that you've got one lore point to share with your friends, let's move on to the next one. Number 2, the major gods of Ragnarok. The two major gods, as we've mentioned in lore point 1, are Odin and Freya. It's a little disappointing that Odin's likeness isn't well portrayed in either the manhwa nor the game. Instead, in the manhwa, we got this shadowy figure who for some reason reminds me of the Marvel depiction of Loki instead, because of his horns. While in the game, we used to have a rather arbitrary representation of him in full armor riding his regular-looking horse, Sleipnir. The statue used to be located in the middle of Pantera, which has since been replaced by a fountain, as this NPC accurately observes. Freya's likeness, on the other hand, is on full display at Sessrumnir Temple in Rachel, the most sacred temple devoted to Freya worship in the entire Arunefelt states. In Norse mythology, Sessrumnir is the name of the hall in Folkvanger Meadow, the realm controlled by Freya, where half of the souls who valiantly lost their life in battle end up, while the other half, those chosen by Odin, of course, as most of us know, live their eternal life in Valhalla, the so-called Hall of Warriors. Valhalla in the game is accessible when rebirthing. This is where one of Odin's Valkyries welcomes us into the fold as mighty warriors and gives us the option to be reborn to further our strength and capabilities, essentially prolonging our journey in Midgard. Speaking of rebirth, as we mentioned earlier, some gods didn't make it through the 1,000-year war. In the manhwa, the goddess Frigg, Odin's first wife and Baldr's mother, bound herself to the dragon Nidhugger in exchange for the safety of the souls of Baldur and Fenrir, who were later reincarnated as Chaos and Fenrir's Fenrir. It's interesting to note that in the world of Ragnarok, Baldur and Fenrir were lovers, when in Norse mythology, Baldur was Odin's favorite son who died due to Loki's machinations, while Fenrir is one of Loki's sons, a monstrous wolf who is one of the harbingers of Ragnarok and is foretold to defeat Odin in battle. Essentially, in the myth, they would have been in opposing forces, but in RO, or at least in the manhwa, they were romantically involved. The god Loki is never really mentioned in the manhwa, but my personal theory is that he could have died during the war as well, and was later resurrected as Thanatos, and according to Ruchi's theory, could have eventually become the assassin of the shadow, Loki, a major character in the manhwa, who also appears in post-renewal RO. Going back to the two major gods Odin and Freya, each has their own posse of powerful beings sent to do their bidding. Odin has Hugin and Munin, a duo known as Beholders in the manhwa who love to meddle in Norman affairs. Freya has a dozen beautiful yet fearful Valkyries, including Sarah Irene, Zenobia Sadi Frail, Himmelmez, and Randgris, yes, the MVP in Odin's temple. Don't worry, Odin's got his own set of Valkyries as well, including, if I'm not mistaken, Sandra, the one who welcomes us to Valhalla for rebirth, Regenleaf and Ingrid in Odin's temple, and Anghild, the fallen Valkyrie we meet during the Archbishop job change quest. The latter was banished by Odin because she had provoked Freki, one of his wolves. Unlike Freya's, we don't know much about Odin's Valkyries. He loves banishing his people so much that, at this point, does he still have any left? Jokes aside, he actually has multiple nameless Valkyries under his command, including the one whom you meet at the end of the AV job change quest. My question is, where is Thor, one of the most well-renowned gods in Norse mythology and is often depicted in popular culture? Does he exist in the world of Ragnarok Online as a god? Did he perish in the 1,000-Year War? Has he been reborn as any of the characters we meet in present day in the PC game? I hope we'll find some answers in the future. Number 3. Porings are... what? If you played or have even remotely heard of Ragnarok Online, then you've definitely seen at least one poring in your lifetime. They are the first monster you'll encounter in the game as early as its tutorial phase, and easily the most popular monster in the entire IP due to their adorable appearance and their many varieties, making them sort of the official mascot for the entire franchise. But did you know what they actually are or where they came from? You might want to brace yourself. According to the lore, they came from Odin himself. When creating Midgard, Odin was sweating profusely. His sweat fell onto Midgard's surface, with every drop taking on the nearest elemental form. This explains why there are many different colors and varieties of porings, and why in certain places, outside Thor's volcano for example, you have magmaring, and in the fields of Einbrock you have metaling. The poring type's appearance matches the environment they live in. This also explains why their bodies are extremely absorbent, taking any item lying on the ground with them as they plop 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 their way around. Now that you know where they came from, do you still think they're cute? Would you still want to hug them? I think I'll pass. Number 4. The Geopolitics of Ragnarok. Although the mortal realm is called Midgard, the major continent where most of the events of the game take place is also called Midgard. The 3 major nations vying for political and cultural power are, as we know, the Kingdom of Rune-Midgarts led by a king, the Republic of Schwarzwald led by a president, and the Church Nation of Arunafelds led by a female child pope. From pre-renewal up until his mysterious disappearance and death, the king of Rune-Midgarts was Tristan Gaibolg III, direct descendant of the first Tristan Gaibolg who defeated Jormungandr. In episode 17.2, a new king is crowned. He is Nihil Mihiria Hein from the Hein royal family. As for the Schwarzwald Republic, the current king is Karl Theodor Weierstrass, who was likely named after a German mathematician known as the father of modern analysis, who made significant contributions to calculus, while the current pope of Arunafelds is a little girl simply known as Pope. If you'd like to learn more about President Weierstrass, I recommend doing the Schwarzwald Arc quest, particularly the President quest. And if you'd like to get to know the Pope, your best bet is to do the Arunafelds Arc, particularly Rachel's Sanctuary Entrance quest and Peace for Arunafelds, plus the more recent instance quest, Edda Half Moon in the Daylight. Although our protagonist's origins are unknown, most probably for roleplay purposes, we have come to Rune-Midgarts to trade and it's become our home. Which is why some NPCs in other countries sometimes call us Midgardian or foreigner and are interested to learn about our life and adventures in Rune-Midgarts. But did you know that there is another smaller, lesser-known kingdom located somewhere in the same continent? The Morwall Kingdom is headed by King Marcel Morwallo VII, who has recently fallen ill. In order to choose a suitable successor among his 9 sons, he ordered the 2 of them, Prince Guillaume and Prince Kra, must show their strength in battle against each other. This is why they're recruiting able-bodied warriors to participate in the battlegrounds. The brash warmonger Prince Guillaume is the 3rd prince and the current military general, while the diplomatic pacifist Prince Kra is the 5th prince and is the current prime minister of Morwall Kingdom. Honestly, I've never touched the Battlegrounds feature in RO, so I don't know much information about this mysterious kingdom beyond what the Morwall Battleground Recruiter says, and beyond what's readily available online. And the map of Midgard continent seems full at this point, so I don't really know where it's located. Could it be really small that it's hard to find and isn't labeled on the map, or could it be somewhere in the northwest which isn't depicted on the game's world map? Anyway, let's move on to other continents. The only other continent mentioned in the game is Farstar, where the cat race Dorum originates from, with Lasagna as its capital. All other land masses that are featured in the game are either islands off the coast of Alberta and are located east and northeast of the Midgard continent, or places in other realms such as Splendid, Manuk, and Aldecastus in Jotunheim, and Eclage in Alfheim. Number 5. Jormungandr's Curse and the Founding of Rune-Midgarts. As explored in our first quest lore video, Rune-Midgarts' history teaches that sometime in the early AEW era, an evil serpent called Jormungandr and his minions wrought havoc across Midgard. In Norse mythology, Jormungandr, also known as World Serpent since his body encircles the world, is the son of the god Loki and the giantess Angerboda, and is foretold to be one of the harbingers of Ragnarok. In the lore of Ragnarok Online, or at least how they tell it in Rune-Midgarts, Jormungandr was so ferocious and terrible that the only ones who could stop him were 7 noble warriors, led by Tristan Gaibolg I. Since his father was said to have been defeated by Jormungandr, he had a personal stake in this, so Tristan himself landed the final blow that ended the serpent's path of destruction. The 7 warriors eventually founded the Kingdom of Rune-Midgarts with Tristan Gaibolg I as its first king. Descendants of the same 7 warriors now form the 7 royal families whom we meet at the royal banquet, where their heirs vie for the throne after the mysterious disappearance and death of the previous king, Tristan Gaibolg III. It is said that before his defeat, Jormungandr placed a curse on Tristan I's bloodline, which has been claiming the firstborn sons of the Gaibolg royal family for centuries, with each of them developing snake-like scales on their body. But the histories might have been written in a way that glorified the 7 royal families and placed the blame entirely on Jormungandr for the curse. If we want to learn the truth, we'll have to wait until episode 20 The Immortal becomes available on IRO. Or if you're playing on a different official server, feel free to experience it for yourself. One final note about this lore point. The you-know-who in episode 20 could be a reference to a mythological story about Thor performing deeds to please the Jotun king Utgarda Loki. One of the challenges ordered by the king for Thor to prove his strength is to successfully lift a huge cat. Unfortunately, due to the nature of this strange cat, everyone's favorite strongman Thor only managed to lift it enough for one of its paws to leave the ground. Even then, the Giant King was impressed by Thor's strength and told him the truth about this not-so-feline fella. Number 6. Tutorial Areas, from Novice Training Grounds to the Royal Creatura Academy. Do you remember the first few steps you took in Ragnarok Online? You created your character and found yourself in an unknown lush field with a lone female NPC in front of you. You asked for her directions and she told you to cross the bridge to reach the castle. There, the instructors taught you how this world works, trained you to use your knife in combat, and led you to your job change destination. Well, this tutorial area has undergone both major and minor changes over more than 2 decades. In the first tutorial area, the player had to cross a bridge to get to a castle. And it was a rather small room with 3 portals, one to Morok, one to Payon, and one to Alberta, which corresponds to the first 3 towns to appear in the manhwa. This tutorial area was only available during beta. When the game officially launched, the novice training grounds as I had previously described was implemented, with the first female NPC you meet being Xion. Upon crossing the bridge and entering the castle, you'd find 3 main halls with multiple NPC instructors to teach you about the basics of the game and who would reward you with potions and basic gear. Once done talking to the NPCs, you'd be sent to the outdoor training area where low-leveled monsters such as Porings, Lunatics, Fabrays, oh, I hated those when they used to be aggressive, and Rockers could be defeated for EXP and loot. I remember how it was necessary to remain in the training grounds until you'd reached base level 10 and job level 10, then you'd have to enter the portal and talk to the final instructor. Players had the option to take a short test to find out which first job suited them, or just jump on ahead and choose the job class they fancied the most. Players would then be teleported to the town or city where they'd need to take their job change quest. The mystery of this novice training grounds lies in the fact that it's not marked on any map and that players cannot return to it after they've left. Based on the architecture though, it seems that it could be somewhere off the coast of Rune-Midgarts and that the training grounds were owned and run by the kingdom. This version of the tutorial area remained until renewal in 2009 when a couple of minor changes were implemented, especially with the first female NPC you meet. Shion was replaced by Spracky, yes, the same NPC we meet in Ragnarok Origin, and some NPCs were removed to make it easier and faster for new players or new characters to leave the tutorial area and get started with their real adventure. Unfortunately, this more streamlined training ground ceased to exist sometime in 2012. In its place, the Royal Creatura Academy in Islud was born. The word royal implies that it was also owned and run by the Rune-Midgarts kingdom in order to train more adventurers coming from all over Midgard. In this case, I meant the entire mortal realm and not just a continent. This new tutorial area first appeared in 2012, around the same time when new UI elements, including a new character creation screen, new and improved minimap, and a brand new quest window were implemented. The Royal Creatura Academy features a big castle in the northern part of Islud with multiple rooms including a library, a dispensary, a grand hall, a cafeteria, as well as first job training rooms on the second floor. In 2017, KRO revised a couple of things in the Creatura Academy, which allowed for immediate job change and for players to transition into their next source of gears, quests, and other information, the Eden/Paradise group. In 2024, more changes to the tutorial area were implemented in IRO, starting with the new Reno and Lumen questline, along with the Shorty Guide feature. The Eden/Paradise group also now owns and runs the academy, and players can immediately join the group and get their first set of Eden gears from Lime Avenor upon returning to the academy after undergoing job change. This is the tutorial area's current form as of 2025. Number 7. The history of the Eden Group. Since we've already mentioned the Eden Group, known as Paradise Group in most other official servers, it's the perfect time to talk about them. First appearing post-renewal, correct me if I'm wrong, the Eden Group was founded by Archean Nile Atnad, also known as Alcyon Nile Atnad in other official servers. As everyone's favorite androgynous secretary Lime Avenor always announces when you first talk to him, "People who follow their dreams, listen to me. We are representatives of the Guardian of Paradise called the Paradise Group. There is no place like this anywhere." This implies that they are a benevolent guild created to welcome new adventurers into the fold by giving them a sort of roadmap for leveling and questing. Prominent members such as and Boya assign quests in exchange for gears. After sign-up, Lime will also give you an Eden Group mark that, when used, allows you to immediately teleport to your save point with a 120-minute cooldown. Just where their secret headquarters is located is one of its greatest mysteries, as you'll immediately be teleported to it with no recollection of how you got there whenever you talk to one of its elven-looking teleporters. And in IRO, this secret headquarters houses many important NPCs that can help you on your journey, including everyone's favorite retired adventurer, Gramps. But did you know that its founder and leader, Miss Adnat, is actually the descendant of an ancient civilization? For more information, I recommend you do the episode 15 quests. Number 8. Midgard's Concierge and Logistics Services. If you ever see one of the lovely Kafra girls out in the real world, then you can be sure there's a Ragnarok event going on, since these ladies are almost synonymous to the Ragnarok IP. Aside from their beauty, charm, and individual personalities, the Kafra girls are known to every adventurer in Midgard for the wide variety of services they offer that are all undoubtedly important. You can save your respawn point with them, leave and retrieve items and gears via their storage, and use their exceedingly efficient teleportation service to get to your intended destination. They also lend cards to merchant classes and offer loyalty points called Kafra Reserve Points, much like your favorite real-life clothing or grocery store. Among the Kafra girls, 7 of them are the most popular and are considered regular employees. These are the kind Pavian, shy and innocent Blossom, quirky Jasmine, sweet Roxy, strict Layla, adorable Curly Sue, and the fashionable Sampagita in Komodo. There are also special employees, such as the nameless Ghost Kafra in Niflheim. You can visit them at their HQ in Northwest Aldebaran, where you'll find the Kafra girls busy tending to work. Some of them offer you items in exchange for your reserve points, while others can answer questions about their services. But the sad truth is, we don't know much about their corporate history. Kafra Jasmine does her best to satisfy your curiosity and first tells you that Kafra Corporation was founded by Emilio Alexander Kafra 5,800 years ago. She takes it back and claims that it was actually 8,500 years ago, both of which seem doubtful, considering Kafra Jasmine is not known for her memory. I would say that she must be confusing hundreds with thousands, and our best bet is that Kafra Corp was probably established by Mr. Kafra either 850 or 580 years ago, which would still be within the AW era. Oh, and did you know how their teleportation services work? Kafra Blossom explains that it is a mix of magic and technology, but since it is confidential information, she can't divulge much. What she can share, though, is that the Kafra girls function as a middleman, or middle women, whose job is to simply process adventurers' requests, while other professionals work on actually teleporting you. Interesting, huh? Another interesting thing we found while exploring Aldebaran is that a particular restaurant owner claims that the Kafra girls always go to his establishment for lunch. He himself appears to be a big fan of them and even asks you who your favorite Kafra is. By the way, who is your favorite Kafra? One last bit of significant information about Kafra is that in the mobile spin-off Ragnarok and Eternal Love, Kafra is one of their newest playable jobs under the Thief class. How about those male Kafras we can find in the Schwarzwald Republic and the Runefeld states? Localized in IRO as Cool Event Corp staff, these gorgeous men are employees of the Zonda Corporation, one of Rekenber Corporation's subsidiaries, with their temporary HQ located in Leithalsen. Although they are technically rivals, both Kafra Corp and Zonda Corp have teamed up to provide teleportation services to dungeons via the Dungeon Teleport elections held every week. During voting day, neither company provides dungeon teleportation services, but after either side has gained at least 20 votes, that corporation's dungeon teleportation services will be up and available for the next 6 days. If Kafra Corp wins, players can teleport to Toy Factory Level 2, Clock Tower Basement 3, and Magma Dungeon Level 2. However, if Zonda aka Cool Event wins, their employees will provide teleportation services to Bialan Dungeon Level 3, Clock Tower 3rd floor, and the entrance to Glasstime. Oh, and there's a third Concierge and Logistics Corporation in the mix, the Cat Hand Group, also known as Cat Paw Merchant Association or Cat Hand Commerce Group. Run by Dorams from the Far Star continent, this company was founded by Admiral Toma Thomas, village chief of Malangdo, and his longtime friends Pepperoncino and Gambari of the Vigilante Corporation, who are in charge of protecting their capital city of Lasagna. The adorable but fierce employees of the Cat Hand Group offer their services both in the Far Star continent and in the New World. If you'd like to learn more about them, I suggest you do the Malangdo and Lasagna quests. Number 9. The History of Rekenber Corporation. We've talked about Concierge and Logistics Corporations in the previous lore point, but we all know that the first thing that comes to mind when we say corporation in Ragnarok Online is Rekenber. Visiting their multi-floor headquarters located on the northwestern corner of Leithalsen, we can learn more about this shady enterprise. Speaking with the concierge lady near the entrance, we learned that its first floor houses a library and a ballroom. She doesn't mention it, but employee offices can also be found on this floor. And this is where we can find a Nepo baby. The second floor, on the other hand, is the administrative floor where the chairman's office, his secretary's office, a conference room, and an auditorium can be found. And what's on the basement floor, you might ask? Oh, nothing. Just the Regenschirm laboratory. Heading towards the library, we can meet a Rekenber Corp representative who can tell us about their corporate history. According to her, the company was founded around the same time as the establishment of the Schwarzwald Republic around 400 years ago. Originally, it was called Zenit Zerter Lighthall Research Center, named after their first chairman, whom the city of Leithalsen was also named after. In around 560 AW, a guy by the name of Rekenber took over and renamed the entire company after him. After that, he took over the Regenschirm laboratory and expanded the enterprise to include other industries such as merchandising, logistics, and trading. Rekenber Corp also spearheaded both the airship and Guardian initiatives. Other significant archaeological and historical initiatives include the excavation of Juperos ruins, the exploration and renovation of Thanatos Tower, and the recent discovery of Vera City. If you pick up a book on the shelf to her left, you'll find Rekenber Corp's mission statement. The most significant passage here is the first one. In the pursuit of knowledge, Rekenber will search the Midgard continent for ancient relics. This explains why they go through great lengths to procure and experiment on ancient, particularly godly, items in order to harness the power of the gods to enhance the lives of Normankind. Or at least that's what they claim it's for. We all know it's for selfish and nefarious purposes. And who is this Varmint guy we keep hearing about from other quests? Dr. Alfred Varmint, also known as the Great Sage, one of the greatest minds in the history of Midgard, was born in mid-600 AW and proceeded to join Rekenber Corporation in 700 AW, specifically its Regenschirm laboratory. He was the lead researcher for multiple scientific projects, most significant of which was his successful replication of the Heart of Ymir fragments to be used in technological marvels such as the airship and the guardians that were mentioned previously. There is actually more to him than meets the eye, but that's a story for another day. I mean, if you're a 400-year-old dude who still looks like this, you've definitely got at least a few secrets, right? If you want to learn more about Rekenber Corp, best do the Schwarzwald Art quests, and if you'd like to get to know the Great Sage better, the episodic quests from 17.2 would be your best bet. And finally, we have number 10, the history of Juno. Known as the capital city of the Schwarzwald Republic, Juno is a sight to behold. This floating city houses some of the greatest thinkers in Midgard, with its Sage Academy honing the skills of would-be scientists and researchers. Juno also has, perhaps, the world's largest library with the most extensive book collection of historical, scientific, and popular value. Two other establishments that point to Juno's intellectual prestige are its Historical Research Group and the Monster Research Organization. Members of both guilds explore all corners of Midgard in search for knowledge. As we found out in our Juperos and Juno quest lore video, the intellectualist culture in Juno is not by accident. They are, after all, the descendants of an ancient yet highly advanced civilization that had existed up until sometime between 600 to 700 years ago. The events leading to its catastrophic demise are recounted in the episode 15 Phantasmagorica questline. Some of the survivors of this mini-apocalypse used the Heart of Ymir fragment to launch a part of the Juperos ruins to the sky, which later became Juno. The Juperos ruins itself used to be a part of the greater Varus city, and primarily housed a research lab headed by Dr. Vesper Newton, who later turned himself into a human-robot hybrid called Chimera. There's also a Dr. V portrayed in the original version of the Instance Dungeon Charleston Crisis, and my personal theory is that this Dr. V and Dr. Vesper Newton are one and the same, especially since this instance is set in a map that has a very similar layout to that of the second level of Juperos ruins. We tried doing Charleston Crisis recently, but it has since been changed into a card game reference, with Charleston 1 and Charleston 2 being replaced by Leviathan and Ziz Ingrata. In this version, now called A King's Heel, Dr. V is nowhere to be found and the lore is also quite different. In the original version, we are sent by Charleston 1 and Dr. V to reset Charleston 2, who has taken control of the laboratory. She has gained sentience and wants to destroy the laboratory in order to stop the creation of more Charleston robots. It turns out that Charleston 1 was essentially Charleston 2's mother, as the former was the prototype and helped in the creation of Charleston 2 robots. Toward the end of the quest, Dr. V likens the latter to a spoiled child throwing a tantrum and reveals that this has happened multiple times, and every time she is reset, she becomes smarter and more resourceful. This, together with the dialogue expressing his desire to experiment on humans, points to his lack of empathy and the possibility that he could be Dr. Vesper, but I could be wrong. I'm not entirely sure why they chose to overhaul this instance in a way that severs its connection to the history of Juperos, and it is kind of disappointing and frustrating at the same time. What do you peeps think? And that's all we have for today. What did you think of the first episode in our 10 Lore Facts series? We're planning to make this type of content every few months to compile lore info in an easily digestible video for those who prefer what I call big picture lore presentation as opposed to quest deep dives. Which lore point did you find most interesting? What lore points would you like us to include in the next video? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click on the bell notification button to be notified every time we go live or upload a video. We've also recently opened YouTube memberships for those who'd like to support us more personally in exchange for some cool perks. If you're so inclined, consider clicking on the join button. Until next time, take care, good night, and goodbye!